Imagine showing up to vote in the next American election. But before you can cast your ballot, you're stopped. The poll worker asks you to prove that you are a United States citizen and to hand over official photo identification. For some Americans, handing over an ID is basic common sense. For others, demanding specific documentation at the registration desk creates a barrier that makes voting harder than ever. Before analyzing any new voting law, we must look at how American elections actually work right now. The United States doesn't operate under one single election system. Instead, it relies on a decentralized patchwork of state laws. Verification procedures look completely different. Some enforce strict ID laws, while neighbors rely on signature matching. Because the country relies on this deeply decentralized reality, introducing any single rigid national mandate will create a massive structural collision. That brings us to one of the most debated election proposals in the country, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the Save America Act. This legislation has returned to the center of the national spotlight, pushed by Donald Trump and a coalition of political allies ahead of future elections. The bill introduces a sweeping federal mandate. First, it requires absolute documentary proof of citizenship at the exact moment of voter registration. Second, it requires voters to present physical photo identification at the time a ballot is cast. The Save America Act is an attempt to overwrite 50 individual state systems with one uncompromising federal filter. Republicans backing the proposal argue that this filter is necessary to achieve airtight election integrity. Their primary goal is to ensure that not a single ineligible vote is cast. Supporters argue that a uniform national standard is the only reliable way to catch ineligible voters who might currently slip through the cracks of the various state systems. Beyond the logistics, the legislation aims to boost public confidence in results. Supporters believe that implementing strict nationwide verification removes all administrative doubt from the process. The core logic is simple. If showing identification is a mandatory requirement for everyday tasks like boarding a plane or opening a bank account, it must be required for the foundational act of democracy. From this perspective, the Save America Act is the ultimate systemic failsafe. It prioritizes the integrity of the election apparatus above all other concerns. But voting rights groups strongly warn that a theoretical security measure can very quickly become a devastating practical barrier. To see how this works, consider Person A. This voter has ready access to a matching passport and a current driver's license. For them, verifying eligibility is an easy one-step process. Now consider Person B. This citizen might have a lost birth certificate, a name changed after marriage, or lacks funds to acquire official IDs. For them, the bill introduces a multi-step process filled with administrative hurdles. These hurdles disproportionately affect specific groups, namely elderly voters, lower-income Americans, and those with limited mobility, who may struggle to obtain specific documentation. The bill also complicates the debate over mail-in voting. For military members overseas or elderly voters at home, it raises the question of how physical document checks can be enforced when the voter is not physically present at a polling place. Critics argue the legislation acts as an economic and administrative filter that actively blocks legitimate citizens from participating in their own democracy. It is important to note that the Save America Act is currently a contested proposal, not a settled law. Its implementation depends on navigating a divided Congress and surviving intense political negotiations. This legislation acts as a proxy battle over how America defines a successful, legitimate election. If democracy depends on every eligible citizen being able to vote and on the public trusting that those elections are secure, how does a nation protect both at the same time? Should voting be made more secure, even if the process becomes more demanding? Or should it remain as accessible as possible, even if the government must use other methods to verify eligibility? The path forward forces a choice between two competing priorities. The controversy surrounding this act highlights a deep division in how Americans believe their democracy should function, and whether the country can strengthen trust in the system without making the ballot harder to reach. Now, I want to hear from you. Should the Save America Act become law? Or should Congress find another way to balance election security and voting access? Tell us exactly what you think in the comments below. And if you want more clear, fact-based breakdowns of the biggest national stories shaping America, subscribe to this channel, because understanding the debate is the first step to deciding where you stand.